Whoops. I turned off chat briefly. I apologize for that. Um, Welcome back to what we were just doing moments ago. Um, I've told a couple people what I think happens. I don't know if it's going to happen continuously, but what I think happens is that some people tune into the live thing, but most people just watch the highlights and VODs later. So for those people, this is an interview thing where I'm trying to get at like the deep junk inside RP and like how to be better at it, and asking all these random people who don't necessarily stream um what makes them the way they are and why I think they're so good and why they think they're so good and how they don't really, and that sort of happens. Anyway, unimportant. We just said that we both have tea. Um, so for everyone who hasn't heard your voice, which is probably everyone except me, what kind of tea do you drink and like?
Uh, hey, by the way, I actually like to drink chai tea with a little bit of creamer in it. I've tried to get away from drinking latte every day, so that's the easiest transition from that. So,
Can you believe that, Scove? Because
oh
I
yeah,
cannot.
and
Yeah.
and,
Wow.
and for those that aren't recognizing the voice, oh hello, my name's Scove. How you doing?
Wow. That's really cool. Can you do other voices too?
Uh, I'm I can, but I'm actually fairly new to RP, and the deep voice is the only one I've done, and now I've done it for so long that it's really difficult to switch into something else. So I would need a lot of practice and to warm up.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we love the first time I did this, um, that that kept happening, and I was like, wow, I can't believe that's your voice. And now I just don't make any assumptions about anyone's voice. I'm like, whatever you're gonna sound like, that's you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
wow. Yeah,
It
that's Grandpa. Yeah.
yeah, it's Gramps.
Um,
By the way, Atro, I really wish we could have RP'd some more. I like in the 10 minutes I had that one day, I had a blast with it, and I've seen some clips of you interacting with other people, and it looked like a lot of fun.
I've had a couple out of character conversations with Shelter, and no offense to Shelter, but I guess where I'm from or whatever, I cannot understand him very well when he's not doing a voice. I don't know. So, but I like
Yeah.
it and I want to, so. Um I guess I guess all of us don't know a whole lot about you, um, and where you're from and how you say you're kind of new, which I know is not true because I know where you were before this. But I guess tell us like what you have done in RP and who you've played and all that stuff.
So I did well this last chapter that's now ended, and I started the first time I did RP with voices was the chapter before that. So um I started out with a group, I don't even remember their name.
Their name is. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It
Carry on.
was Well, we ended up in Wolfsong, but I believe we were something Trident, and we got so much flack because there were about 4 different groups that had Trident in their name. So we ended up, as part of Wolfsong, and, Stoneheart did their job to kinda introduce us over there. Um, but I played Early Harris. He was the grandson of a, Yeti. So he ended up being the harbor master for Wolfsong, and he very rarely left the shore because he had so much to do, and really was shirking his duties on shore. But yeah, so I played with Wolfsong, and then um, due to a lot of people have a lot of free time to play. I tend to have a lot of distractions, and I can't, commit say 6 straight hours to the game, which is part of the reason I wasn't able to go out on voyages. So for this last chapter, I kind of just wanted to go out on my own, by myself. I could log off at any island I wanted to. So I created Scove, and I didn't, anybody I'd RP'd with before, it was just kinda, "I'm gonna do my own thing this time," and, started out at a free port, and the first person who wanted to bring me on a ship and go set up a base, I went with it, and, that's how the entire chapter went. I just kinda went with whatever I felt like doing, and it was amazing. So,
Cool.
uh and for those that haven't met me, my character this last chapter was Gerhardt Scove. He was very commonly known among irreputable people as Gramps. He didn't want his name getting thrown around in certain circles, so he would just tell people he was named Gramps. Uh, Gerhardt. Yeah, I'll type it in chat for you.
I did not know you had another name, honestly.
Yeah, I tried to do a decent job at separating the 2 circles, and I suppose we can always get into a little bit of the story of Scove and kinda what he was actually up to because, meeting up with the Schooner Club was kind of his that was kind of the end of his story where he kinda settled down, which was a lot of fun. I had so much fun with it because, uh, the group, Pierre and Svi, everybody was very much, uh, they they were interested in the same thing he was interested in, which
Yeah,
was just looking out for number 1, always keeping an eye out for, yourself, so he
yeah,
fit in quite well.
that's awesome. I do. Um, yeah, sure. I mean, we we honestly have no idea what you were doing. We made a lot of jokes about vultures, but other than that, from what I can tell, I think you were doing some sort of like intelligence work, because you cared about the names of ships and how many people were on it, what their sales look like. But I don't know who you were doing that for. And it didn't matter to us, obviously. We were just trying to do
Yeah,
whatever. So
yeah.
yeah, what were you doing? I guess.
So the first group I ended up on a ship with were aspiring red sails. It was a group. It was led by Frankster. He streams. He's a small streamer. He's a wonderful guy from the UK, and he ended up being privateers, but honestly leaned a little more towards black sails. He had a beef with the Navy now and then, and so I initially developed a contact with a group of privateers, and then one day at the Freeport, I just was feeling mischievous and tried to blend into a group of people who were hanging out there. Um, and I saw an opportunity to follow one of them onto their ship and just sail away. And I didn't even mention to the Cavaliers, which is the privateer group I was with, I didn't even mention to them that I was leaving. I just sailed away on another ship. And it turns out there were two black sailed brigantines, and they sailed down to F4, and it was a group called Parabellum. Um, and that's where he ended up losing his leg. The doctor there tried to convince Scove that he had plague on his foot, and he kind of just went with it because he knew he was in a precarious situation. So the doctor ended up knocking him out, taking his foot off. He actually physically knocked out Scove and then placed a peg leg where his boot was. And from then on, I went with it. He had a peg leg, and they wanted him to spy on the Circle Obscure, the carnival folk, because they were convinced that they were pirates. So to earn their trust, Scove went over to the Circle's Island, and he told them that he had shipwrecked on shore. He sailed over there on a raft, and he spent about a week on the island, and he ended up getting a schooner built by them, sailing back home. He was convinced the Carnival were not pirates. They seemed very, very nice, and he got in with the pirates this way. And eventually, he went back home to the privateers to kind of let them know he was okay, not realizing they had launched a huge search party for him. Thinking he'd been kidnapped by pirates. So he needed to distance himself from the privateers, but also strengthen his ties. But that's how he kind of got started with the intelligence stuff. Parabellum basically made him become a spy for them, and it was at that point he moved I never joined Parabellum or any black sailed organization as Scove, but I
Ah,
lived in F4, which is where the undead.
what? We have black sails. What?
Oh,
Oh yeah,
yeah, I
I
guess.
guess you didn't join. Okay, that's
Then
true.
again, I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't sign. I was actually getting close to putting black sails on my club schooner, but I never did get around to it. So,
Dang. We just assumed you
um,
had them. Honestly. Yeah.
but so yeah, so Scove lived in F4 for quite a while, which it was a cesspool of pirates, to put it lightly. There
Yeah.
were at least two black sailed organizations on every island except for the Undead Island, which, well, I mean, nobody wanted to settle there anyway.
Yeah.
Um, And so he started to just kind of collect information about ships that were in the area, people that were in the area, and with the intention of, I don't know, I didn't necessarily intention for it. I just kind of thought, if this benefited me with Parabellum, uh, then this might benefit me in the future. So I just soaked up as much information as Scove as possible, and from there, just I I did attempt to go to the Navy at some point to see if they would buy information, and, they were not as interested as I thought they would be. So I went others, West Virginia, I had a few people there. I actually worked with, a fellow named Lord Kane of Asgada. Um, let's see, who else? Stoneheart. There's a guy named Arrow or Arogala. I can't remember, but he was their intelligence guy. So Scove started to build this kind of network of contacts. Um, and he never really gave information away to other people unless it would benefit himself. Um, and he ended up working with the dwarves at some point too. He lived on the dwarf island for a long time, and nobody knew that he lived there because that was the way he wanted it. So,
Wow.
um, but yeah, for the most part, Scove lived on a schooner and he sailed around.
I also tried to sell information to the Navy, by the way, and they did not really
Okay,
care. Yeah.
how did that interaction go for Pierre?
Um, I was just ignored. But that's fine because I had made up all the information, so it didn't matter.
Okay.
But they were like, write it down and we'll make sure it gets somewhere. And I was like, if you're not gonna pay me now, how do I know you won't or you will pay me in the future or that you'll pay me at all? I'm not gonna write down anything. And they were like, then don't. And I was like, well, I guess bye. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Scove ran into, he would always sail over to the privateer docks because to him that was more interesting.
Hmm.
Um, and he ran into Darla Webster at one point, and she told him, and this was the first point where he was trying to actually sell information. She told him that if he had information, he should just write it down and turn it over because it was for the good of the crown.
Yeah.
And Scove immediately got on the ship and sailed away.
Good. I'm glad we both did the same thing.
Yeah.
Dang it. Okay.
But
Wow.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna move on. So if you got more stuff, hit me.
I I will say, like, he would try to use the Navy as long as it was to his advantage. So, like, for instance, Scove would go poach things on the Danger Islands, and, but if there were other poachers there, he would go to the Navy and report the poachers to benefit himself. To
Nice.
basically kind of work out the competition. And, and in that sense too, it would give him an alibi. "Oh, why are you at this island?" "Oh, I'm looking for, I'm keeping an eye out, watching out for poachers." And he himself was a poacher.
I
I
knew
mean,
this Scove guy was one of us. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and Scove literally in the front of his ship, he'd been inspected, or never inspected by the Navy, but he'd run across the Navy like multiple times, and I'd try to act mischievous. So I really wanted them to inspect his ship because at the front of his ship, he had a crate full of mythos and a box with penguin blubber in it and clubs. Like there was so much stuff on his ship that
Yeah.
was just meant for people to find, and they never inspected him. They always expected he was just a, I don't know, harmless wanderer.
Yeah.
Um, but
Dang. Cool. I basically, from what I know, just from the last like 10 minutes, I
mhm.
don't think you're new to RP. Um, just like everyone who looks at the rest of us doesn't think we're new to RP. But like I said, everyone really because I don't think we talk like we're doing right now. I don't think we talk about what we're doing really at all.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks like I'm just me and I've only done this little bit, and everybody else that I see on big streams and or any streams has done it longer and knows more and is better. And we're all
Yeah.
just we don't know, none of us know anything, and we're all just guessing. So
No, that's very true. I think at one point Pierre was trying to get Scove to go over to the East India Company, and it probably took me 15 minutes to get to their base because I was trying to practice a French accent, and like it was gonna be awful. And at a certain point, I just was like, okay, you know what? He's faking a French accent anyway. If it's awful, it's awful, and
yeah,
that's like that'll just be part of it, you know. So, and of course, nobody was home, and I was actually a little
yeah.
disappointed that I couldn't, butcher an awful French accent to try and scam them. But
Dang, too bad. Um, so yeah,
yeah.
you liked us though, I guess is what you said. What sort of characters do you like when you're playing in your huge rage of playing, not just with us?
I think I like characters that have. I mean, it's a small thing to say, but characters that have a lot of character to them. I first ran across Jeffrey, and like just the way he was just deadpan, like through all of his RP. There's no emotion, but it was just hilarious the way he did it. And I don't know if he's very experienced with that, but I love that. So he mentioned, oh, there's a schooner club, and I like scooters, but I was just like, you know what, I want to interact with this person more. So I was like, okay, I'll go hang out with that and see how that's going. And it just turned out to be like just a great group.
It's probably because I've played with the Jeffrey character before, but I think he's got a lot of emotion. Um, and like,
Oh, he does. It's just
yeah,
the voice that he was using, I
yeah,
think, is he can be in the middle of a hilarious situation and just still like not have I have to step away from the mic for a
yeah,
second because I'm just
yeah.
laughing
I
my butt
agree.
off.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Um, he he's got a crazy backstory, like a long. I don't know if he's made it up along the way or if
Mhm.
it's different every time, but I've heard it a couple of different ways, a couple different times, or like pieces of it, I guess, and it's always really
Okay.
good.
We should
Um,
you should interview him and then I can watch the VOD.
I don't want to force Shelter to do a voice the entire time.
Oh no, I meant we could just talk to him about it. And,
No,
I
I
mean,
know, but I have trouble understanding him myself.
yeah, yeah.
So
Oh
I'm
yeah, that's
really
right. Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Of all the people, I'm not kidding when we're talking to Shelter and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what he said. I
Yeah.
feel really bad.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of funny because I don't think I've heard Shelters or Ewok, or sorry, not Ewok. Like I haven't heard your guys' voice outside of when we just did this now. So
Um, Ewok. Well, so okay. First off, we're probably gonna play a bunch of games together in the future, and I'll probably stream some of them. So, I mean, you and everyone who ever sees this ever in the world is welcome to join.
mhm.
But yeah, Ewok's voice is not as deep. If you had known Jimmy, I would be like, it's Jimmy, but a little different. And then Shelter's
Mhm.
voice is pretty close to Jeffrey, but the accent is like way different.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear what the voice behind the voice.
Yeah. Wait, wait till you have you seen the GobTube interview?
No, I haven't. I'll have to watch that.
That's Osus. Um,
Okay.
I know you only met him once, and let me see if I can do his. I was gonna try and do it. I can't do it. I need people not looking at me to think about it for a little bit.
See,
Anyway,
that's exactly how I am with
yeah.
voices. I can't like I need to have practiced it before I try anything.
He sounds way different, and he can do a couple different accents and a couple different voices. So he's
Okay.
really talented. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw some of the stuff because doesn't he played a bard in
Mm-hmm.
Conan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw a couple clips of that. He's very talented.
Oh well, then yeah, that's his normal ish voice and singing and
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
it's yeah, GobTube's yeah, OSAS it's definitely very different from his
Yeah.
normal voice, that's for sure.
He can
Yeah.
also do like Russian and got some other voice in the works. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
um, yeah, we're all like stuck on your voice, I think, so that's cool.
But
Uh,
yeah, so
yeah.
so I yeah, I guess I ended up running into you guys and it just felt right for Scove to kind of find a place to finally settle down instead of sailing around.
Mhm.
And just the scams and the fact that you guys were running a club that he didn't necessarily have to join just
Mhm.
lined up perfectly with how he kind of ran things. So I was very happy to have met the group and just that RP scenario. um
Yeah, I so a couple different thoughts there. I planned pretty much everything that happened. Like if I do this, then what will happen? Okay, that's the
mm,
best choice. So
yeah.
I chose the island when I saw it because I knew what was on it.
Mhm,
Um, but that was only from last season, and I had already seen an island that had different resources than I expected. So I knew that it was an iridium island, but I didn't know if it still was an iridium island. So I just chose it because I was like, it's definitely got metal on it. It's probably
mhm,
fine. I know people have lived on it in the past. Um,
yeah.
and that worked out as to like bringing us over and over and over and over people, even if they didn't want to talk to us. Like it advertised on its own.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But the club idea, I'm glad you brought that up. That idea is sort of based on something Roscoe Growler was trying to create. He wanted to create like a faction of hermits that were within the purview of other companies, but a network that would trade information and so would like meet up kind of like the trade people did, meet up all in one place, share that
Mhm,
information so that there was someone in the back of a company or talking to the leaders or whatever who knew what other companies were doing at all the time,
yeah.
just as like an information sharing. And so we talked
Yeah.
about that a lot. And when we were coming up with this club, I was like, there's no reason that can't just be sort of a framework that we do where you don't have to be in the company to hang out here and to be with us. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah, and I think that actually worked out well for because there's a lot of I mean, granted, some of the server rules are restrictive for ships,
mhm,
and that was one of the reasons I tried to stay on my own. Is because if I was gonna sail around, and that was what I did as a character, I had to have my own ship. And as soon as I joined a company, all of a sudden there's restrictions in place. Um, but yeah, it worked out great, and I mean, I liked it a lot. It was and just the idea of a schooner club, like I mean, it's the motorcycle club,
yeah,
you get your patches, you got, all those things. I really wish we could have seen that play out a little bit more in terms of just the club meetings and, that was all great.
yeah. That was
Um,
GobTube's idea. Ewok didn't know that's what we were doing when we started. Um,
okay.
I I had two different ideas with two different. Well, I didn't have any of the ideas for the record. None of this was my idea for the record. Um, GobTube came up with the schooner club or whatever. We were originally supposed to make motorcycle noises, revving noises. There's a couple reasons why I personally
Okay.
moved away from it, but the idea was the heart had its own noise, and so each of us would do different noises. Um,
Yeah.
and then Ewok wanted to do a restaurant, and I was like, well, let's do all these jokes that we've had in past seasons and past private jokes and stuff, and we'll put them all together and make Red Dicks. So he didn't know that I was setting up for a motorcycle club throughout the beginning where we made the restaurant, and then
Okay.
Osa shows up and the club starts up, and Svi's like, what the heck? And he started getting like, I I guess the change was like more gritty and stuff
Hmm.
instead of just running a restaurant. It's, um sort of, I don't know. It's not that he changed, he just became more
Yeah.
I don't know, hardcore
That
or something. I don't know what the word is. Yeah.
it kind of makes sense now that looking at how the characters were involved with the Schooner Club. Svi was definitely, I think, more interested in the cooking than doing scams or jobs.
Well,
Um,
he was upset, and I can understand that. And it's a
right? Yeah.
thing we talk about a lot where people um don't use the RP that's available, I think.
Hmm.
We talked about a couple times where we'll all stand on the dock instead of in the bar, which is right behind us, and talk. Like, that doesn't make any sense. We wouldn't do that normally, but
Yeah.
that's a thing that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we point out. So
Yeah. No, that's very true. I mean, if anything, people would go sit at the bar and have food and drinks while they're chatting.
yeah, exactly. Um, Ewok, I guess. Yeah, it's hard to talk about other characters that aren't yours because there's so much that happened that I didn't see. You're right. So
Yeah.
maybe Zvi was already, you know, he had the club in his heart and we just didn't know. And then the club started and he was like, I'm already here. Let's do this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I just bring up one thing?
yeah.
I just wanted to say one of my most enjoyable experiences at the paint nights was when the wall was removed and Svi was standing there in pink shorts and holding a gun, and it was, we got to paint Svi, and it was, I mean, by far, I think the most fun I've had painting in that game. And I don't do like, I paint in real life, a little bit,
We saw. Yeah.
but, uh, I can't do Atlas painting. There are some very talented people. I just can't use the mouse to do it, and, I think, I tried very hard to make an accurate drawing, but just, I don't know how to say this, but bringing that idea of, like, painting a muse, which it was Svi. I mean, it was, I thought that was incredibly, hilarious and just genius.
So that night was the only night that I didn't make up on my own. So
Oh, okay.
that so that's how all of the previous paint nights went. Um there was something at the beginning where you paint like a small thing, and then there was a larger painting that you would paint together
Mhm.
in groups. That's
Okay.
how Flutter ran it every single week. And I asked her, hey, can I take this paint idea and run it in our own sort of vein? But
Mhm.
and then when she said yes, I didn't want to do like her idea. It was hers, and I wanted to come up with all these other ideas that I thought might work. So that's why we had the mannequins. That's why we had the person who looked at a painting and then had other people paint it. Like, those were all of my ideas, but
Yeah, yeah. The mannequins were really good too. I
yeah,
love that one. I'm sad, I missed that one, which was unfortunate. I wish I could have been there for that because that was a and then just being able to go stand behind the paintings with your head sticking out,
yeah.
I thought that was really good.
Thank you. We will let Flutter know that her idea is and always will be genius. So,
I'm a
uh,
little sad now that it wasn't yours.
no, that's cool. Um,
I thought it was.
the thing she did was like have like a backdrop where um and I painted a lot of them where it was like a dragon breathing fire onto like part of a farm or something like that. And so there would be like a character who stood in front of that in plate, and then you would paint the whole scene with your partner as if like it was all one thing. And I was like, oh, that's really
Ah,
cool
okay.
and stuff. So
Yeah.
um yeah, they're talking about Scope's painting being auctioned. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. I was actually genuinely surprised. I had sent the picture of it because I can't remember if it was you or Ewok that had mentioned using it, but I had uh, I hadn't completely forgotten about it, but I didn't expect to see it at the auction and so soon. And when it went up, I was just like, I had left all my gold on my ship, and I was like, I need to buy this because you know I just thought it was such a great place to have the auction, and I was gonna try and bid on it, even if you did a blind auction.
Yeah.
It would have been
Well, I
I
didn't know
think.
what it was, so that wasn't my
Oh,
idea
okay.
either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ewok put
What
it
did
up.
you do?
I didn't do anything. Literally, this entire season was just ideas from other people that I was just the force that made their ideas happen, basically. So that's it.
You know what? That's important too, though. I mean, because you did do a lot of work in setting everything up and doing all that and trying to get everyone together, and that actually, like, I think creating that environment for people was I think, and that's one of the things I appreciated a lot about this season was going around and the undead. I loved living in F4 because and spying on the undead because they created such an environment on that island of danger and dread. Like I remember the first time I walked into the swamp, it was pitch black and I just see this eerie green glow from their city and I knew I shouldn't be there, you know.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that and having the paint nights where it's it's a lighthearted thing, but in reality, there's like a bunch of club members trying to scam whoever's there out of money,
Oh,
as
dude.
if it's a charity. I mean, just the probably the worst kind of people, right? Like
Yes.
it's for the children and
Yeah.
the destitutes, which is that was
Yeah.
I mean,
I said it a
I
bunch of times, but I'm really sorry and against all that sort of stuff. Don't do that stuff for real.
mhm,
I'm against it, but we had to
absolutely.
portray it. We had to prove it worked, so.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um
honestly, like I think in reality, I mean, whether somebody lost their base in the storm, I think having an RP scenario that would give them something to do in the game was more important than just giving them a base back, you know?
yeah.
Um, I'm a firm believer that, even if I lost my entire ship, which I did at one point, um, if it leads to good RP, then that's better. Um, I like starting out in games where you have nothing and you kind of have to choose a direction,
Yeah.
because that's part of the I think the character development that I got to experience at least on this chapter, which was very nice.
Wow. Um, that's a good segue. I don't know if you know, but I have a bunch of like different questions that I ask everyone.
Oh,
Um,
sure, yeah,
and then specific ones for each person because you're all different. Um, I only have one for you, because
okay,
I didn't know a lot about you. Even though we like hung out all the time. Um, I don't know. I just like, yeah. So I'm gonna hit the more usual questions and save the
okay,
the single one I got for later because I still have not heard a response on whether I'm even allowed to ask. So
okay.
we're waiting on that one. Um, but speaking of like how like the atmospheres people made and stuff, what do you think the balance should be between? And I think Scove is really realistic, like super on the realistic side. But what do you think we should
Mhm.
shoot for in RP for realism versus having fun?
I like the having fun more, and I tend to go more towards the realistic and serious RP. And maybe that's just I like the having fun because that's something I see people doing. Like, I mean, looking at some of the stuff like Admiral Bane, when he has both sides. He can be very hilarious and off the cuff, funny. but at the same time, he can also be very serious when the time comes. And I think that's a great balance. I tend towards the serious, and if somebody is serious, I'm going to be serious. Uh, but if somebody is trying to be funny, I like that because it kind of brings that out in me, and I like that. But I mean, at the same time, like I don't know, I'm kind of being wishy washy here. You There is a need for serious RP at times. But the fun is what makes the game fun. Like if you just went around and were serious all the time, I think it would get tiring and kind of uh not boring, but I think people would get exhausted from you need those lighthearted moments.
Yeah.
And people like Pierre, and they roll up in a black sailed schooner. What's a poppin'? It's
Hey,
it's just
everything I did to those people was serious. Okay, it's not my fault they were laughing and thought it was a joke. That's not my fault.
seriously hilarious.
um. So hey, so this is not in this, but this is an idea that I've asked a couple people about.
Mhm,
I think so. So I made the club once I got control of it to prove a point, basically that what Gob didn't want to do, the shooty, stabby, stabby pirate stuff.
mhm,
I wanted to prove that it could be done and that we could be pirates, even though we didn't have any weapons except for Zvi, who had weapons but only pulled them out for painting. Um,
mhm.
but I, as we did it, I honestly think we were meted by the actual scenario and that it was way too easy and it was not a challenge at all to do. Um,
Mhm.
do you think that the server is set up so that lying realistically is possible?
Um, y I agree, in the sense that, there is a lot of meta that happens in terms of truth. Um and you sail up in a black sailed vessel and people assume a certain situation, that they're going to be pirated, or um, they see uh, your club name or your group name, and it may not be that they're trying to meta, but it will change how they react. And there's a reason I use the name Gramps in like the pirate circles that I was in, is because I didn't want people throwing my name around, so that when I was at a privateer organization, or when I was at the Navy trade docks, if somebody said, "Oh, Gramps was here," and then they saw my character, it doesn't say Gramps above it; it says Scove. Um, and when I wanted to get information out of people, I would introduce myself as Scove, because immediately they would be disarmed and they would think I was telling the truth. So I think it is hard to lie. Um,
Hmm.
in the way that the game is set up. But there are ways around it, and you
I
just have to try really hard.
I was actually shooting at the opposite point.
Okay.
Um, we rolled up to people in their homes over and over and over again. Not a lot. Okay, that makes it sound like way too many jobs were done. We did very few jobs, but the jobs
Okay.
we did, um,
Mhm.
we went to their homes and we said we are um, Candy Striper Wilson and Branson or something, right? Those are our
Mhm.
names. Here's what we're here to do, and everyone in front of you can see that those are not your names and
Yeah.
knows you're lying. So it was Lance. You're right. It was Lance. Candy Striper Wilson and Lance. So when people see that that's not your name, they know you're lying. So they know that there's a setup, right? They know that pirates normally lie or whatever, or that you're at
Mhm.
least not being truthful. And it felt to me like they went along with it just
Yeah.
to see what it was.
Okay. Okay.
And I think that's too easy. Like, if someone comes to your house and says, "Hey, I'm here for an inspection," you should be like, "We don't have that scheduled. You should leave." Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally see what you're saying there too. Because it's because they're seeing those nameplates and they want to entertain the lie.
Yeah,
Or I've seen it too, where if you lie to someone, they feel like because you lied and they know that you lied because of the meta information, your name tag, now they have to go along with it because if they didn't, they would be acting on meta.
exactly,
Um, and
exactly. Yeah.
and yeah, and it's I think that's tough. I think it's really tough because it's true. If you know if they nameplate you and you tell them the wrong name, usually they're going to ask you your name at least twice more. I definitely experienced that.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then they might go along with it because if they're acting on it, it's meta. But I agree that I think people need to understand like what it would actually happen here. What what's a realistic response here?
Mhm.
Um and I think personally, I think the way to do away with that is to get rid of all the nameplates. I know Ven suggested it a couple times, and I think it would be great.
Yeah, I
Um,
play with almost no HUD myself, and it's really
yeah,
difficult.
it's very difficult. Just remembering people's names is difficult. I tried to do that, and the main reason I tracked ship names and sail configurations was because when you talk to people and you're an outsider and you're trying to get information, it is very rare that anyone will ever say the organization name.
Mhm.
There were pirates, specifically the Pack. I knew them the entire time they existed as the Black Dragon.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there was a different organization called the Black Dragon that they were just imitating. And I had to try very hard not to call them the Pack because I didn't know in character. And I didn't know Parabellum. I never heard the name Parabellum, and I was very close with those individuals. But I knew that their individual names, and I knew their ship names, and that was the trick to tracking where people were was ship names for me. I tracked Blackhaven across 3 different organizations for a number of there were people that were interested. I can't remember if it was Night Guard, Bastion, I think Esgata were interested at one point, and the Navy, all about Blackhaven. And they had moved 3 different times. They were the Minutemen, then Blackhaven, and then they turned into Crimson Dawn. They never changed their ship names. And that was, I mean, it was very easy for me to spot where they were because, there's this ship that's parked here,
Yeah.
Um, of course, naming your ship, uh, what were some of the common names? Titan for a galleon, um, Seize the Day. I think there were at least 5 brigantines named Seize the Day.
Wow.
That was always like well, I'm never gonna track this ship.
Yeah. Um,
But
like Ewok said, a lot of people do that where they use different names in order to try and combat meta and stuff, which is cool. Um,
mhm.
but at the same time, like it shouldn't it shouldn't matter, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's I don't know.
So yeah, part of the reason I use the name Scove when I would try and gain information from people is because um number one, like on the black sailed organization, they call me Gramps. That's what I actually went by. And then on the other side, I would have people call me Scove because that's where people should have been cautious, I think. Um and I wanted that realistic response. So if I told people my name was Scove and then I would try to get information that they shouldn't be giving up, I wanted them to act naturally without actually realizing that they were hiding things
Yeah.
or which actually I thought worked pretty well. Uh,
Um, yeah, it does. So Ewok makes a good point.
yeah.
Let's say an organization called Blackwake, um, calls themselves Red Dawn and pirates you. But and so that's also the thing that I felt was negative about Pierre. But if you can't if you can't say, oh, this is this group, I'm looking for them to other people, then do you really have evidence? No, you don't really.
Yeah.
Um, when when we gave fake names, I felt like it was kind of cheating, but at the same time, we were right there in front of them, defenseless, for the entire time we were there, right? So
They could have easily just pulled out guns and it would have been game over.
when Jeffrey said my name during the dock inspection job, I literally like was like, "Oh no!" Like I felt the like concern of Pierre looking at him like no
Yeah.
other time. I was like, "Oh no!" And they just skipped it like it didn't happen, and I was like,
Oh,
"Man, that's lame. We should have died right there."
yeah.
um, but I tried to leave evidence that would lead to other scams, and
Okay,
who
yeah.
people who knew us. So I would use people's names who could identify us and my
Yeah.
voice specifically. So if you went to that person and you said, "Yeah, some freaking guy with a high pitched voice said your name," it's obviously not you. Then it's obviously me. Like they know me. So
Yeah.
that's what I
We
tried to do.
were when we talked about doing the privateer scam, um, I was going to use so I met a fellow in the Cavaliers named Bones as Scove, and he was the cook for the Cavaliers. And if you've watched the Navy streams, you'll recognize him. He kind of said, "Oh, I perhaps," and he's just kind of this bumbling old man, very unique voice. And I mean, meta. I never actually met him in the Navy, but because I know he's in the Navy, I wanted to use his voice when we went to the Navy, so that way there was a chance that they would know, like, oh, this guy's imitating him.
Yeah,
And the thing is Bones knows Sco very well. So if they went to Bones and said, "Hey, somebody's imitating your voice," who is it?
yeah,
He would be very interested and then potentially figure out that it was Scove.
yeah. That
Um,
that's yeah, that's good. I like that because it gives the other person RP too, right? Like
yeah.
there's a group who's pissed at that person and then they finally get him and it's the wrong person. Oh snap, that's
Mhm.
so funny. Like you got to
Yeah,
figure it out
yeah.
together.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I honestly wish there was a little bit more theft RP, and not pirating, but actually thieving. Um, but I think people avoid it because it's so close to rule breaking kind of stuff,
yeah.
and it's very kind of, I don't know, negative RP in a way.
It's also really risky because for example, you may or may not know, I accidentally killed several people on a ship on accident while they slept on accident, definitely an accident.
Mm,
Um
yeah,
But that was my first experience with, like, having all of this stuff from a person available to me, and that was last season, not this season. And when I did that
mhm,
on accident, definitely, um, I realized that, like, if I had been robbing these people, if I had broken a box, there's nowhere to put the rest of their stuff. I had to run far away from where their stuff was, put a box down, and
yeah,
then transfer all their stuff to it. So if you break into someone's house, how do you know that the box you open doesn't have so much stuff that you
yeah,
can't even follow the rules? So
yeah,
it's so
that's very
risky.
true.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
yeah. Um, like you can only take 5 blueprints, right? If you broke into the knights of the rifle before they had their guards set up, and you broke one box or one bookshelf, you would have like 200, and there's nowhere to put them on that island that they don't own. So you
Yeah,
either burn all of those blueprints, you take all of those blueprints and break the rules, or you just
yeah,
hope
yeah,
someone wakes up. I don't know. I don't know. So
yeah. I intentionally leave all of the interior doors and chests on my schooners unlocked, just for the reason of I like having the idea of somebody being able to look through everything because why wouldn't they?
yeah,
If somebody gets into your ship and they're like, "Oh, what does this person have?" I fully expect them to probably look through everything and maybe even take everything, and I'm totally fine with that, which is part of the reason I leave it unlocked. Um, I mean, like I said before, I like the idea of starting over, and that's it. It would give some interesting RP to me, even if they didn't leave a note. It would give me something to talk about when I go to the next port. Like, I was robbed, and there's thieves in the night, and they came and just took everything. The vulture RP was, I thought it was, I just wanted to do some breeding before the chapter was over,
Yeah.
and trying to set up an entire, like, 10 vultures on a single schooner and get them to breed. I didn't even have the breeding house, so I had to manage the temperature as well, so that was a nightmare. Uh,
Dang.
but I thought I found it was a lot more interesting to talk to other people about how scummy the ship had become and how I needed to sink it than it was to actually do the breeding, though, so
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Do you, since you just did your voice again, or Scope's voice, do you think this is something we've been talking about for a while?
Mhm.
Do you think it's easier to show more emotion and your serious dramatic leanings with something closer to your own voice versus a random voice?
I like to do, and this is something where I actually find to do seriously with people who don't use a fake voice. And it's because, like, there was a situation where I went to Asgada's port, and I had been trying to give them information, and I was creeping around their base, and a puckle killed me. Not only that, it didn't kill me. I hunkered down to hide, but I was trapped. So the queen came out and she shot me, and I was like, Screw this, I gotta run or I'm gonna get killed."
Yeah.
And the puckle finished me off. And I had to, uh, I was talking to somebody and they basically said, "She's treating this as a PvP kill because you were creeping around the base." I said, "Okay, well, I definitely want to remember this." So I took the 24 hours, and I woke up the next day and I went, and I think I was a little bit frustrated, but, Scove was definitely, like, Scove would have definitely been angry. He was trying to deliver information to Lord Kane about the fact that a new pirate organization had set up near them, and he'd asked him to investigate them. And it was very, very pertinent information that needed to be delivered immediately. And I had to take 24 hours, and then I didn't even have furs, so I'm in the frozen north and waiting at their front door for them to return my meager belongings. And I, like, as Scove, I laid into the queen. Um, I absolutely gave her dressing down, um, just because he was doing them a favor, and it. And Scove and the queen did not get along well. He commonly referred to her as a um, the they called her the frozen queen of the north, ice bitch. I don't know if he did not like her. Um and it was easy for me to do that in character because I was using a different voice, and yet separate myself from the fact that I might have been a little frustrated, but I wasn't directing my frustration through the character. It was all RP. So I might have seemed very angry, and there's been a few occasions where I yelled at Commodore Marcus about the Navy not having defenses when I sailed a black sailed brigantine into their port. Um, I was delivering a ship, by the way. That's a whole nother story. Um, and so I'd yelled at him, and I've yelled at other people in character. And I think it's easier to do with a fake voice because it's very obvious that you yourself are not angry, and it's hard, I think, for people to separate their character that they're playing and um, themselves. And I think that having a fake voice helps a lot. Um, I think it's easier for other people to not take it personally. And I think it's easy for you yourself to realize this isn't me being angry. This is my character being angry. Um, so
Yeah. I did the same thing with Boxster, but for the opposite reason. Um
okay,
uh I know you didn't meet Boxster, I don't think. He's very like low voice, monotone, sad, Eeyore-esque, whatever. Um,
I have we did interact through an intermediary, and I
yeah,
think we talked about this one time, but yeah.
we got
Um,
close, but
yeah.
I don't know if we ever met for sure that I know
No,
of.
definitely not.
Yeah.
I was definitely when we came to the paint night to, um, intimidate Boxster, I was outside running, making sure that no other ships sailed up on us while we were out there,
Mhm.
or nobody left. So I didn't actually get to interact with Boxster, but
Yeah. Well, um, he he originally, and I tell people this all the time. He used to sound kind of like me, a little higher pitch, very
mhm,
happy-go-lucky, kind of. Because I was like, that was my second character, and my first character hadn't gone anywhere, and I didn't know what to
okay.
do. So I made a new character, and I was like, let's try something new. And now that I understand the game, and some stuff happened, and then a situation occurred where I felt like um I was wronged, even though I also did wrong in the situation.
Mhm,
And so I reported it, they reported it, and that was cool. But I took a couple days from playing because I was so new and it was so close, and I didn't know like I don't know how to freaking continue. So
yeah, yeah,
I wanted um I wanted all of my like anger and disappointment and stuff to be in everyone's face all the time because I was really mad.
yeah,
So Boxster was sad because I was mad, and it was like a weapon originally against
mm,
everyone I met from then.
okay,
And
okay.
that's how he became like, I guess, the way he was.
Yeah, and that's part of I think that's part of, how I saw Boxster because I didn't know him very long, but whenever I saw him on stream after, my interactions, he just seemed so sad all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it became funny, and then it became sad, and then it became
Yeah.
like happy. It was kind of sad for a while, so
Yeah,
I was gonna just stop playing him, because I felt like I had reached the end when he was sad and junk. Um,
yeah,
but he like met a girl and stuff, and it was really weird. And I was like, I mean, I guess we'll go a little bit farther and see what happens, and then all this like other stuff happens. So that was cool.
yeah,
But yeah, it's
yeah, I
interesting
think
that we took different paths. I think.
yeah, and I don't think it's impossible to, use a voice and, detach yourself from the character either, or yeah, not use a voice and yet not,
Yeah,
detach yourself. That's totally doable. Um, and I I think it's that's something that I found is hard for RP is giving your character emotions without having that kind of bleed through. Um, it's definitely a difficult thing.
yeah. I don't know how to do that. You got any tips for that besides
Uh,
using a voice?
if you're actually angry, take a break. Like
Well, yeah,
don't RP if you're actually
yeah.
angry. It's trust me, 2 days later you'll realize I think that probably would have made a mistake if you'd kept playing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I still have not seen any messages. You don't have to answer,
Oh,
nor
let me see. Let me see. Did you send me a
no,
message?
no, not you. Sorry,
Oh,
someone
okay.
else. Um, so so basically, I want to know like sort of the feeling without any details. Okay, don't tell me any
Okay.
details. We don't need any details, but I want to know if we as a community, we as players, um, what we should have done, what we did wrong, or what we did right when your company broke the server briefly for a little bit, sort of.
Yeah.
Um, how did that make you feel to be a part of it, and like, should we have done different stuff?
Uh, and this is very interesting too because like as the harbor master of Wolfsong, I should have been aware. There were like I saw ships being like I didn't build any ships myself. A lot of the what happened there was segmented. Do I need to? Yeah, we could probably get like you said.
I don't
I
know.
don't know that yeah, I don't know that we like, stepping back a bit, I don't know that we could have done anything different.
Yeah.
Um, my initial reaction when I found out was to take everything that I had, um, that I thought might be associated with it and throw it into the ocean because I didn't care. I didn't want to be associated with it, and honestly, I was disappointed. Um, it's I think it's unfortunate for everybody that was involved, and, I don't know if there's a way to avoid that. That was a very unique situation, I think, so, um,
Yeah, so I've talked to a couple people, like, again, not asking for details, but like,
yeah.
just like, hey, ha, like, could we as players have, because there was like a lot of stigma against your name, and even though we
Yeah.
didn't know your like specific names necessarily, like
Oh,
anything
yeah.
associated, we were like, nope, terrible, nope, trash,
Yeah.
nope, whatever.
Don't touch
So
it, throw it away.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um like, could we as players, as crafters, as whatever we were, could we have like made you feel still a part of us or whatever any better, or did we do fine at that, or I don't
I
know.
didn't feel like I was, I mean, I knew, that I hadn't done anything wrong. And that whatever had happened was done apart from me being complicit. I think there were a couple people that were involved, and or I don't even know who was actually involved. I know one individual, but um,
Yeah.
yeah, like we were, I think, as surprised as everyone else was. Um, and yeah, the name had been drugged through the dirt. I didn't necessarily feel attached to the name at all, like, I didn't start out as a part of that group,
Yeah.
but it was, the group I was with, and there were some very good people there, and they still play, I believe. Um, uh, I didn't necessarily feel like I was being ostracized at all,
Yeah. Good.
um, so I think it was handled well. Um, yeah, I For me, I think it's disappointing that someone felt like they needed to do those things,
Yeah.
and, I think that a lot of that was focused around, just, I mean, like, wanting to win and not for the story,
Yeah.
which is not how I play. I don't go out and do the PvP battles. I liked interacting with the people,
Yeah.
um, but
I think it's so interesting that, and I understand that like that's what I was trying to make, but I think it's so interesting that all these people don't care about the game and they're in the club. Like, that's crazy to me.
yeah,
Um we talk about it a lot, how we don't want to play the game, we want to RP, we want to go talk, we want to do whatever. And
yeah,
then occasionally gather or occasionally make some
yeah.
clothes or something. So it's crazy that we're
I'll
all
be
together.
honest.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Atlas. I I don't like Atlas.
Me too. I do not like
Um,
Atlas. Dang.
there are parts of it I enjoy. Um, Sailing can be enjoyable, parts of it. um, but like I would much rather sail in Sea of Thieves. I think it's a lot better
Yeah. Oh man.
uh
Yeah.
there. I've been doing a little bit of Red Dead Redemption RP on the public servers. And as far as a game goes, getting into a group and interacting with people, it's so much easier to do than Atlas.
Hmm.
There were days in Atlas where I would sail for 4 hours and not run into I would stop at bases, look for people, and I wouldn't run into a single person. But
Yeah.
um yeah, and I think that was tough because I wanted to RP with people and Atlas made it difficult, unfortunately. But
Yeah. Um Two things. If there was a way to make the islands closer, um, so that you didn't spend as much time sailing to hit another island, do you think that would help, or do you think it would just clutter the space with a bunch of trash that people had abandoned?
I think it would help. I think making the grid smaller, um, and closer, as well as making the ships faster, would actually improve, that aspect.
From
Um,
from what I understand, we can't make the ships any faster. Anyone
yeah.
ever, for the record. But
So
yeah,
so in that case, then yeah, just make the grid smaller. I mean, I yeah,
I so we talked
or
about
the wind faster.
we talked about speed a lot and the way it works.
Yeah,
Um, because we were trying to figure out, just for ourselves, whose ship was the best and whose was the
yeah,
fastest.
yeah.
Um, but from what I remember, like 2 chapters ago or something, um, I think Grape Shot said that, and I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure they said that if the max speed was increased too high, the load or something, the I don't know what, because I don't know about games, was like
Mhm.
ripping ships apart or
Oh,
something crazy like that. So they couldn't go much faster. So
okay.
I don't think they'll get any faster, but
Yeah. I do think the Atlas world is genius. The fact that you can have a grid of, a 10 by 10 grid or an 8 by 8 grid, and each grid has 100 people in it. I think that's amazing.
yeah, I
Um,
agree.
like looking at what the possibilities are for like Red Dead RP, like you can put, I don't know, maybe a max 60 people on a server, and I like and the world there is huge. I don't know how anyone's gonna run into each other unless they have to, organize it
Yeah.
outside of stuff. So
I I think that Atlas, the way it is right now, is fine, but um the community sort of, oh gosh, like the ebb and flow of the community and stuff is really hard to pinpoint, like where you should be in order to meet people. So um
yeah, yeah.
we
I actually, sailing around on my own, I had a policy that when I would leave a port, I would go in whatever direction the wind took me.
yeah.
And it actually led me to some very interesting situations. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I think Scope.
I did the same thing at one point. I agree.
Yeah. I think Scove was definitely he may not have known it, but he was a devout follower of the void. He embraced chaos,
Nice.
wherever life took him and led him, that's where he would go. And then he loved being mischievous. So,
Yeah.
it, but in that was Scove. For me, it was how do I get to the next island fast so that I
Yeah,
can
of
find
course.
somebody to talk to. But yeah.
Um yeah, speaking on that, I guess. And now that Darkside's moving into other stuff, how do you think it's I don't know if I asked you this already. Man, you said a lot of stuff already. How do you think
Mhm.
it's changed over the time that you've been playing?
Uh The Navy is very good this season. I'll be interested to see if I expect that Ven won't be. I think somebody may have said that he's not going to be the admiral anymore. And if that's the case, I think the Navy probably won't be as good. Which I think would be a great thing because I'd love to see a lot of pirates. I'd love to see a torch, a safe place for pirates to meet and RP. Um, I think a lot has changed though. I think things have gone in a good direction for building a world that is fun to interact in. The privateer system, the navy system, pirates fighting each other, um, has been really nice. And I think there are a couple of changes they could make to improve the trade. I'm not going to suggest any of that here because I know you have no control over what goes in there.
Nope.
Um, but I definitely think that they can get civilians involved. And I know Van has talked about some improvements for civilians next chapter. I definitely think it's all going in the right direction, though. Um, so yeah, I'm interested in it.
Speaking of changes and improvements, what do you think of the mods? The game mods, not the team.
Yeah. I think I love the improvements that are there. The cobblestones in the walls that allow people to build very interesting structures without, making loading into a port absolutely horrible. I think are great. Um, the I think there's a lot of stuff that is added to improve. I messed around with the alchemy and the hunting and the breeding a little bit, just because I like to explore the mechanics of new features.
That's a good point. Can you explain whatever that junk was you were putting on the ground? Because we never saw anybody else do that.
So, as a hunter, which is exactly what Scove wanted to be,
Mm.
I would go out and I would tame creatures. So I messed around with bait. If you can build it or you can create it in the hunting tables or I forget what they're called. But there's a new table that you can do all the hunting stuff in. And so basically what it is you create a pile of bait, and it's like rice, potatoes, there's a recipe for it. And what you do is you drop one at a time. And there is carnivore bait and herbivore bait. Carnivores are like, your everybody knows what those are. Anyway, so yeah, yeah.
Yeah, carnivore, meat eater.
Yeah, meat
Yeah.
eater, plant eater. So and basically what you do is you throw the bait down, and if a creature is nearby and they're either an herbivore or a carnivore, they will come over and eat wherever the bait is. And then they will glow a great funny color of pink because it needs to indicate that the bait is acting on them. Um, there's two types of enhancements for the bait. You can create basically you create alchemical potions to mix with the bait, so you can either slow down the creature or make the creature frail. And in some situations, such as horses and bears, if you make the creatures slow, they are incredibly easy to tame.
Okay.
Bears are huge, like they're incredibly fast when they sprint, and they're lumbering slow creatures when they don't. So you just feed a bear a or a slow bait, and then you can just knock him out and bowl him and you don't need a cage. It's so easy to do. It made hunting and taming a lot of fun. You can also grief. Or I mean, not necessarily grief, but you can have a lot of fun with the bait because you basically can control where the animals go. So there were times where at paint night, and I would lure elephants over, or I'd put a sheep in the resting room, or um, yeah, or just you could throw carnivore bait next to somebody, and an animal will come over and take a bite, and they will definitely bite the person that's standing on the bait. So
Huh. Wow. I didn't know any of that stuff. We didn't. I mean, that doesn't really sound like work, but it kind of sounds like work. But we just didn't do any of
yeah,
that stuff. That's crazy.
yeah. I I liked the alchemy, but I don't think if I had respect at any point, I would not have learned it
Yeah.
because it just wasn't useful for what I wanted to do. But it was very interesting as far as like going out and trying to collect some of these rare items like razor tooth eggs, which
Yeah.
I never even found one. But
Yeah. I think Jeffrey had a source on him, but I don't know for sure. How'd you feel about being able to see ships forever in the
oh,
distance?
that was wonderful. That makes finding people very easy. I do wish. Actually, I'm not sure, and I'm actually curious what you think about this. Clearly, it didn't work for me seeing whether a ship was black sailed or navy at a distance. Do you think that would have encouraged more RP or less?
Um, yeah, I talked about this. I don't know, one or two or some amount of interviews ago.
Hmm.
Because I forgot that it existed. But I had a really hard time with trying to think about if I should be able to see a ship or not.
Yeah,
Um, so I was starting to because like I said, I play without the HUD. I try to do everything without any game information. So everything that could tell you which section you're in or the
yeah,
map or any of that stuff, it's all turned off. So I don't even know how many people are in the server or anything like that at any time.
Yeah.
Um, so I tried to think like if I'm on a ship and I'm sailing and there's a ship over there, should I be able to see it? But it didn't matter. Like I felt compelled to go towards it no matter what,
Yeah.
because I could see it. And at the same time, I do like that, let's say you're a privateer or you're a pirate or even the Navy. Um,
Mhm.
there's a ship in the distance. You're like, oh, there's a ship in the distance, versus um, that ship turned towards our port. Are they coming here? Are they pirates? Are they Navy? Are they whatever? Are they coming at us? Like, I think it increased the amount of danger you could feel,
Yeah.
but I myself could not, like, I could not look away. Like, if there's a ship, I'm like, there's a ship, we gotta go, or we gotta get away, one or the other. So I
Okay.
could not meta it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Okay. I used the system to actually tail a few ships. And there were some people that I was looking for, and so there was one individual at the Navy trade port, and I had picked up some information that they had been involved in spiriting away the Commodore to she'd left and,
Uh-huh.
went AWOL. And I knew the name of the ship, and I knew uh what the person looked like, and that was all I knew. And that's actually what led me to Jeffrey, was that ship because I
Yeah.
found it docked down the shore. And I tried to tail that ship to find out where they actually lived, and they lost me. And I don't know how they did it because I swear I kept the ship in sight the whole time. Um, and they went to the Navy trade port. And then when I went there, it wasn't the right ship. So at some point they went behind an island and a different ship came out, and I don't know if they intentionally lost me or what, but it was an interesting situation.
Yeah.
But I have used that system to track, because people talk very freely at free ports, and you can tell that people are pirates, and who they really are, or they'll talk bad about the Navy at the F2 free port, and then you can go follow their ship back to their port and know exactly where they live. So I would use that kind of information to figure out, who belonged where, or where a ship actually belonged, if it was black sailed. And it was nice to be because people don't expect you to tail them,
Yeah.
but it's a very doable thing. I think it made for better RP. Um, I kind of like the fact that you cannot see whether it's a black sailed ship at a distance, though, because I think that might make it more difficult for pirates,
Yeah.
because people would definitely flee.
We I don't know, I don't think you were there. But we're chilling at the bar. Me, I don't know, Jeffrey and Double D, I think. I'm not sure who it was exactly.
Okay.
Um, but we saw like a brig go by and we were like, there goes that brig again. And then another brig went by and we were like, oh great, there's a whole bunch of brigs, they suck. And then brig and brig and brig, and we were like, what is happening? This is crazy, right?
Yeah.
So because we could see them so far, and we were who we are, we were like, let's get the schooners, let's go, right? So we all pile into
Yeah.
my schooner and we go out there and we're cruising and we're like, man, this must be a battle, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and we got close enough, and the ship we were tailing was a Navy ship, and we're right up behind them as pirates, right?
Yeah.
And so we're like discussing, should we continue? Should we pull them over? Whatever. And what finally stopped us was they were obviously ready to go. They had like cannons all over the ship and they had guns and junk, and we were like, if we pull up and they are chasing a pirate, because we couldn't tell,
Mhm.
um we'll probably all die. So we just turned
Yeah.
around. But you're right, it is a surprise when you get to a ship and you're like, oh snap, it's the Navy, whoops, or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's interesting too when you see some ships in formation and you're like,
yeah.
there's a brig and a schooner or something. You're like, that's probably pirates. I don't. You're having to guess, and
Yeah.
then do you sail over? I don't know. As civilians, it's definitely uh, you- There are some people who will just flee from every ship, but I think
Look,
people
just
like
because they couldn't
myself will
catch
go check
us,
it
I
out.
mean, might as well run.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I spent a whole season as Boxster just stopping for people and seeing what happened, and then it was always usually pretty negative. So,
yeah,
this season I was like, let's freaking run, and
yeah.
it didn't work one time, but other than that, it went fine.
I
Um,
actually only got pirated once this season.
nice, good work.
Yeah, and I sailed all the time, everywhere, and like I would stop for everybody. And the pirates that pirated me actually, uh, they were one of them was from Parabellum, and they recognized my voice, and then he tried to make them stop pirating me, and just kind of just let it go.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah, those are fun. The
They didn't find my secret gold stash. They found the decoy gold stash, which
ah
they were impressed with, and then I felt bad. I almost felt like I wanted to give them more because I was like, "Oh, this is a lot of money to them." Whoops.
yeah, Zvi also had
Yeah,
the decoy gold stash, so
yeah, yeah.
apparently that's a club thing. I don't know. Um, did you ever meet Croc as whatever his name was that I can't remember his other name? Your other
I don't
character?
remember. I don't remember meeting anyone named Croc.
Well, Croc was Roscoe Growler. He's like Croc was like a green skinned troll kind of guy.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I don't. I never met him.
He he got pirated so often, and he like worked for the paper and all that stuff that
Oh, okay.
he built a brig and he put like tubes in it like from the deck down, so there were all these trapdoors all over, and then if you open them they had like all these barrels and crates and stuff in it, and he would just put his stuff in random boxes, and then if he got pulled over he would open all the doors and say take whatever you want, and he would just stand there and they would have to like climb down and look through all the boxes and climb back up and go to the next one. He said it was super good at hiding junk because they just gave up and left.
Yeah.
That's a good
I
idea.
found that having more boxes just randomly everywhere, like, they tend to not look in certain things,
Yeah.
or, like, if they've got 5 people looking, they all go for the resource chest and then just kind of spot check other
Yeah.
things, so,
We
um
we were worried that the new boxes weren't showing up because some people could see them and some people couldn't. But
I did notice on your stream, when I was showing you my ship, you didn't see some of the new boxes,
yep.
um
Yeah.
And, yeah, now looking back at it, I wonder how many times people were on my ships and just didn't see, half the stuff I was carrying, so
I asked some people in Discord chat to do experiments and stuff, and I can't remember who it was. I think it's Prianum, maybe. I don't know how to say his name. Anyway, I think they checked and they could see a box the entire ship length, but I cannot. And
yeah.
we think it might be one of the settings because I did a bunch of experiments, but I don't know
Yeah, I
for
saw
sure.
you tweaking them a little bit,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was definitely weird.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you also couldn't see them if you were on a ladder. Like if you put them on the mast, you could climb up and not be able to see it, but as soon as you got off the ladder, you could see it or something.
Oh, okay.
Mesh level
Interesting.
of detail. Okay, that might
Yeah.
be it.
Definitely some things to work out, though. But yeah.
I chose still talking about jokes he was using. Oh man, yeah, he's real funny. Um,
Uh, I specifically would leave notes. So I had a note on the wall that said, "Don't trust the monkey." And whenever people would come on my ship, when I got pirated, I would always tell people, I was like, "Oh, the monkey's always putting his hands in my coin chest." The
yeah,
monkey had 50 gold on him, and if somebody wanted the monkey, I would have given it to him. Like, it's just stuff like that where it was just like, and that wasn't even my hidden spot. It was just,
I we actually discovered that you're not supposed to put money or like any valuables or whatever into animals. Not that I'm calling
Oh,
you
okay.
out, but technically the rule is since you can't kill other people's tames, they're like
Yeah.
untouchable, so you can't possibly
Yeah.
rob them.
I see. What I think what I wanted to do was I didn't put the money there to necessarily hide it.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody to see the note and ask me, and if they had asked me, I would have like showed them the money and
Yeah.
given it to them. You know, it was just one of those things where it's like I wanted people to interact a little bit more, and I definitely had a there was a box on my ship called orgy trophies, and any trophy that might be in some way, you know, affiliated with there were just a ton of stuff in there.
Oh
You
man.
can probably guess what kind of trophies were there. Um, yeah,
That's awesome. We I so you told us about the monkey and I think you paid me out of the monkey's pockets, but um I I was really against taking animals from people because I had to flip them
yeah,
and do all this work and stuff to get rid of them. So I was like, I'm not
yeah,
gonna try and steal this freaking monkey or anything. There's no point.
yeah, yeah. I think yeah, it's one of those things. We actually had somebody pirate a pet, a personal pet from somebody the first chapter I played. And the person whose pet it was asleep on the ship at the time, and they were very upset about it. So
Yeah,
I completely understand like why there are, you know, why there are rules that are there. But I think that also leaves something to be said for like people like me who I don't mind if you steal stuff out of my ship
yeah,
or if you want to take one of my animals. If it makes for good RP, I'll go along with it. Now, if you're doing it just because you're being malicious or you just are stealing things, then you know that's something else. But um, if there's RP involved, for me, anything's game. As long as it's not ERP, and then I'm out. Drop sales and all, I'm out of there.
um oh, by the way, did you know about the was it a lion? The lion that we stole from the zoo? Did you know what that really
Yeah.
was? I can't remember if we discussed that.
No, I remember we took it because somebody had donated it as a like, there was a sign that it had been given up.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not it's not a donation to the zoo. It's a it's a place that you take animals to be adopted by other people at any time.
Oh, okay.
And we
Okay.
literally stole nothing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was
Oh
great.
man. And that's what we
Yeah,
did the whole time. Like that sheep that I stole or whatever, it was a free
yeah.
sheep. Like it wasn't I just told people that I stole it to be hardcore, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, when I turned in the black sailed vessel to the Navy, I when they asked me how I got it, I told them that I had followed this captain in the middle of the night, and when he was sleeping, I got onto his ship and paid off the crew and commandeered his vessel and sailed away with it. And I mean, that was completely fabricated story.
Yeah.
There's no way you could do that in Atlas, at least not that I know of. The real story was I convinced Parabellum to give me the ship because I was going to frame a captain that had left them, and you know, two birds with one stone. The ship had a bounty on it. I wanted the bounty money, and they wanted to frame the old captain.
That's
So
awesome.
you know, granted,
Nice.
when I told the story at the Navy, they just kind of looked at me like, "What?"
Yeah. Um
Yeah,
so I talked about this with Gob because he was like, "Oh, you know, I'm not logging on. I'm playing other games. So I'm not really a part of this idea, this schooner club, this whatever."
yeah,
And so I said, there's no reason that we like the Prez and I at the time haven't done jobs together. Like even one day to the next, it doesn't matter if he logs on or not because I can just say we did this, we did a job, and as long as it doesn't like change the amount of money we have, the amount of like
yeah,
resources or any of that stuff, like it could have happened, right? So,
yeah.
um, do you think that we can we can be more creative in the things that we do as our peers? How do I like? Do you think it's acceptable to just make up stuff that's not a backstory per se?
I think so, and this kind of comes back to the you want people to react realistically. Um, a lot of the RP or the game we play is you know dictated by the rules that are the game. You cannot steal a ship without doing things that are against the rules or using some mechanics that I think are disabled. I think for the time being.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's totally reasonable to try to steal a ship or do things that the mechanics aren't there to do. I think it's up to people to be creative. And if the other people you're interacting with are up for it, I'll bet there are people that are willing to unclaim their ship if you wanted to steal it.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so yeah, I definitely think that people should be creative. If you want to say that you did jobs that never happened, I think that's totally fine.
yeah.
People have backstories that. I mean, the first character I had, he part Yeti, which is I don't know. I just tried to explain away the fact that he had a very good fortitude. But yeah, I think there's a lot of room for people to be creative and just play outside of the boundary of kind of what we think are the capabilities of Atlas and the Dark Side RP. And I think that people need to go along with it. Um, I had it was somewhat frustrating interaction with a character where I was uh, trying to explain that um, they should defend their port because a pirate could just sail by and sink their ships. And they kind of looked at me like, no, they can't. And that was kind of their reaction. I mean, in more RP terms. And I was like, well, yes, they can. They're pirates.
Yeah.
They could just sink everything you have. Why wouldn't you have someone out here? And I was trying to, like give them a reason to interact with me in this make believe world, which is something we exist in. But I think they were just kind of stuck on the fact that there are rules that prevent people from doing something, so therefore that is something that cannot happen. um, and that kind of stuff's a little immersion breaking for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's yeah. I think that's up to each person. I mean, if it's one of those things where you want people to go along with the lie, but you want them to act in a realistic way that's kind of outside of the game mechanics.
Yeah.
Or, um, you know, if you're a pirate and you're jumping on their ship, you want them to fight you or resist. But yeah,
Um, I think
yeah. Shelter brings up a good point of kind of how that worked out last season. Yeah,
yeah, having a deadline so that you could report them or escape or
yeah,
agree or make up or just catch a trash animal or something like that.
yeah. Catch a sheep somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like the rules. I try to stick to them very closely and I report myself sometimes.
yeah.
Um so yeah.
I did a lot of litter reporting. And there was one day where I think I had to make 3 reports that were like rule break reports. And I don't like to make rule break reports. There are situations where I didn't report people, but I would try and contact them to let them know, like, hey, like, I'm pretty sure you didn't intend for this to happen, or you didn't intend to set up your base this way. Um, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but
Yeah.
yeah. I think I came to the realization at the end that, if it is a rule break, it's a rule break, and if you're reporting yourself, that's probably better than, you know, if
Jeez.
you're yeah.
Well, I mean, like, so on that, I feel like if I report myself, someone else can make the judgment of whether I should or should not have done that,
Yeah.
because I can't tell. There could be things happening that, I just don't know.
Yeah.
But I also like if I see someone or something and I know who it is, I'll message them and be like, "Hey, this is I'm not an admin or anything. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, hey, this is a rule or whatever."
Yeah.
And I think that maybe we should do that because, for example, the Schooner Club had more ships than we were allowed at the very end. And
Okay,
if
yeah.
someone had reported us, I mean, there was no point. Like we had an allowance through a ticket already,
Yeah.
so they would have just been making a report for no reason. So if they had messaged us, we could have been like, "Oh yeah, we got this ticket thing. You should stop by, and we could show you the ships." So I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Geez, now they're arguing about getting robbed and resisting pirates and stuff.
I think that people should like I think people should be upset about getting robbed. There's so many people, and I even had difficulty with this myself, as you are like being you I mean, you don't wanna be upset. You're having a good day.
Yeah,
There's pirates. I was just happy to see somebody to RP with,
yeah,
And, these pirates come on and they're trying to rob you, and, I think, like, that's something I'm gonna have to work at is, being upset that they're taking something, but also trusting that they're not gonna, you know, understanding that you're just role playing.
yeah. Well, the thing is, and it's a common issue, um, and this is something that is very close to Shrimps, and she's gonna go off on it, but you don't just shoot people because they talk a lot. Like, um,
Yeah.
if someone is talking a whole lot and they shouldn't be, um, you're stealing from them. So once you take the junk, like you let them go because if if we were playing legit, like super legit, you would kill that person and then their company would have one less member or possibly not enough members to survive and you would lose that company and you lose all the resources that they could be robbed of in the future. So
Yeah.
by shooting people, they're going to move away from you, they're going to be pissed, they're not going to like it if they still play. Um and you
Yeah.
just lose like so much that you could be stealing. Like it doesn't make sense. And people don't do
Yeah.
that I mean, there are situations where people just pull guns, but most
Yeah.
people don't shoot them.
So here's a question for you, because I actually am kind of wondering about this. There are a few pirate groups. The pack were I would call them a murderous group of pirates. Um, and that's just how I heard or saw them interact with people. I know from last chapter there are uh with AR, there were definitely a group of pirates and captains that would like hang people on their ships as games. And I thought
Huh.
that RP was almost uh it was too light, you know what I mean? Um like it was almost like they weren't considered, like they knew that the people weren't going to perma, therefore it wasn't as serious.
Yeah.
Um, and then the pirates, I mean, it's murder what they're doing. Like you go out and you pirate a ship and steal some things. That's one thing. As soon as you start killing people, that's like a whole nother level. And just because you can respawn and not perma doesn't necessarily make what they're doing any less worse. Um, yeah, and I actually, so Ewok brings up a good point. I actually had made a decision in my head that if somebody were to capture me and take me on one of those ships, I would have begged for my life. And if they did kill me, I was gonna perma the character because, I mean, in my opinion, they need to understand that what they're doing is huge. You know what I mean? And it's not that that's a punishment, but I think that kind of RP is interesting.
Um So
Yeah.
you're saying there are captains out there on the sea that put you into situations where you make, say, a choice, and either way you're gonna die? Wow, that is news to me.
Yeah.
No,
The
so
yeah, we're talking about the same exact type of game here,
the
the little hangman.
yeah, I've been there. I lived through. Well, I died through that.
Okay, yeah.
It so Um, that is why Boxer had a neck scar, why his feet were burned, why
Yeah.
he had so much damage all over his body. Um,
Yeah.
and that's the entire reason that I showed up at your port, that I left that giant painting, that
Yeah.
you came and like forced me into whatever happened, and
Yeah.
why Leaf and I eventually sat on a ship together and talked about like the meaning of life and stuff.
Yeah.
So like all of this super huge RP happened from a point where technically I broke the rules. I'm going to point that out. Um,
Mhm.
but that did occur to Boxster. And he did die, and I did not perma him.
Mhm.
Um, and then I just continued to play, right?
Mhm.
So, um, it changed Boxster a lot. I let it change Boxster a lot. Technically, you shouldn't have remembered any of it. That's my bad. But
Oh, okay, okay.
Daggre was with Wolfsong, so
Yeah,
he was. Oh, go ahead.
I played early. He ended up as at the end of the season the harbor master of Wolfsong.
He was at the painting night where Boxster asked Iskandar to kill the short guy, and then
Yeah.
Iskandar was like, "They're all short. I don't know which one you mean." um, but yeah, so I I don't that kind of interaction in the game and stuff is something that we see in movies, um
Yeah.
like the Joker and evil characters like that. um and then it's like back and forth between the good guy and the bad guy, and there are all these people, these NPCs that get killed or get hurt or whatever along the way. And you don't
Mhm.
really like look at those people or think about them at all. um and I think that it should be the opposite, I guess. Like, yeah, you should perma to prove a point, but
Mhm.
um what happened to Boxster, I could have just forgotten about it, and I did ignore it eventually. And the second time it happened, I ignored it entirely because it didn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
it most of that is done by people who are creating content for people to watch.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that you did that scenario, you did that whole thing, um, and then it was over and it didn't matter anymore. Like, Boxster was able to continue to play or to be himself, and I was able to continue to play, and there were no consequences because it's the game. And the second time it happened, I treated it the opposite of the way it happened the first time, and I just ignored it
Mhm.
entirely, and I continued on with my story like nothing happened. And I
Yeah.
I think I
I
should have
get
done that both times, honestly.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, because it is kind of a conflict of stories, right? You have this villainous character, who is a murderous pirate captain. You know, they murder people, but then you've also got other people who are playing their own storylines. Who that's not how they want their story to go, and they don't necessarily have a choice of that they're part of this other story. I guess it makes sense that, I mean, it seems like a good solution to say just ignore it and then move on, but let the other character have their chance to tell their story, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the point I made earlier, if you do kill people, they're gone and they don't want to hang out with you anymore. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
even if they don't perma, they're gonna move away or whatever. And I think that that's a lot of the reason why we see empty grids and stuff, because
hmm,
there's a big group of activity from pirates or
yeah,
from whoever, and then they sort of drive everything away from them. And then they have to move in order to not be the focus of attention and start again, basically, and then also to find new ways to
Yeah.
continue. You know, so
I think that kind of and speaking to Ewok too, I think that kind of RP though, there I mean there is a system in place for the Navy for pirates of ill repute and infamy. And I think that murderous pirates should definitely, even if your character is not permaing when they've been hung, I think that should still count against those captains, as you know, they're out there murdering people on the high
yeah.
seas. They should definitely be hunted down. Um, Instead of just, well, no one reported piracy, so it's
Well,
you know.
no one reported it because everyone was died and took a 15, or everyone died,
Yeah,
took a 15, and doesn't remember. So
yeah.
that's
I
the
mean, but
rules, you know.
a body with a rope around its neck could wash up to shore somewhere. Like, I mean, that's
True.
the kind of thing that I don't know. I think that there should be a lot more infamy for those villainous characters
Yeah.
because they are playing villains. I mean, that's what they're doing. I don't know. I don't even like. And props to a lot of those guys that do play the villains, because I don't think I could play someone who is a terrible person. I would definitely. Then again, I guess we were scamming people and
Yeah. I want to point out that everything we did was lying to poor innocent people.
yeah,
So I'm pretty
yeah,
sure we're
that's
terrible.
fair.
Ewok called us the true pirates because um,
Yeah,
those people get hunted down, but we just kept going and we just kept taking and taking. So
yeah, yeah. I I guess it's everybody kind of probably justifies their character their own way. Sco was just looking out for himself.
yeah, Pierre
But yeah,
was
no,
too.
that's very true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter though, Shrimpkin. Like, if they were real and we had taken some amount of money or something like that, I mean, that's money they need to buy the next crops or whatever. If you want to get like into it,
Scove,
you know. So
yeah. Scove may have directly tried to get people put in harm's way. Um like he tried to get somebody kicked out of the Navy who was a affiliated with pirates, and the pirates wanted to kill.
nice.
So he wanted to get them out of protection. And then the pirate captain that he turned the ship in and told them like where he was. The Navy definitely could have gone and hunted him down. Um, yeah, he definitely tried to tell the Navy that the Circle, who he didn't know they were pirates. He definitely thought they were innocent. He tried to convince the Navy that the Circle were working with the undead. You know, just because I don't know. He thought it would be entertaining. I'm not really sure.
I I tried the same thing actually. I tried to start a pirate war and get a fortune teller killed, but I was just trying to turn them in for money. So like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
dang.
I think it's just one of those things where if it made him look good to the Navy, then that was good for him, even if it put an entire group of people at risk, you know? Um, but yeah,
Oh, we played terrible people.
I
Oh,
know,
jeez.
I know.
um,
Yeah,
dang. I have to pee. So, and I don't have any more questions. We're just hanging out.
yeah,
So,
we may have burned through almost, what is it, almost 2 hours.
2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
I I did not know, like I said, really anything about you. You're very cool. You say some
Thank you.
interesting junk. So I'm glad we met, and I'm glad those people met you too. Um,
Yeah.
do
Well, I was gonna say thank you for interviewing me. It's been a fun experience. I actually wish there were more situations where, you know, even just after a little RP, I could sit down and talk with some of the people that I interact with, because Atlas is very segmented away from that.
well,
Um,
a
yeah,
lot of people have said previously, and that by that I mean literally every person this season that I've spoken to has said, um, if you enjoy an interaction, if you enjoy someone's RP, literally message them privately and be like, dude, I like your RP, or that was really fun, or I wish we had a clip of that, or whatever. Um, just to show your gratitude and stuff, because
yeah,
apparently nobody's really doing that, and we should all do that. You know.
Yeah, that is very true. That's very true. Yeah, I'll have to start doing that.
Yeah, we got the
Uh,
okay from at least 3 people, so it's cool. It's good. Uh,
okay.
um, this is a fun question now to ask, I guess.
Okay.
Flutter has told me that there are almost 700, or sorry, excuse me, 7,000 people registered on the Discord, and on the website. So the community is freaking huge. Um, you have anything you want to say to all those people?
Uh, I mean, just I think the world that everybody has helped to create, all the individual people are I mean, it's I did my best to go out and meet everybody I could this season, and it was an absolute blast. I don't think there was anybody that I didn't like meeting. Pirates, traders, Navy. I definitely yelled at a few people in character. I'm very happy to have met everybody, and I mean, I wish I could do it again, and I will next chapter. So, um, yeah, I just for everybody out there that does, get involved with the RP, you guys are awesome. I wish I could meet every single one of you and spend an entire chapter there because it's so much fun. I definitely enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Oh, snap. I should have spent that time while you were answering to look up anyone who was streaming, and then I could raid them, but I didn't look. Oh no. Man,
Let's see.
I have this freaking clip saved, and every time I try and open Twitch, it opens this instead. Ooh, okay, I know where we're going. If you were looking, I already have the answer. Cool. Yeah, thank you for being you, and thank you all for being here. Welcome to here, even though we're leaving. Um,